You are now watching the Ball and Beats podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back here to another episode of the Ball and Beats podcast. By the time you guys are watching this episode, more than likely, your March Madness brackets have already been busted. Every single last one.
Or maybe by the time of this recording, right now.
As well as that. Some brackets have already been busted. In fact, over half of brackets out there have already been busted at this point. Logan and Spencer here for you guys today. And Spencer, how we feeling? March Madness, first day?
It's the best time of the year. The first 2 days of March Madness are one of my favorite sporting events of the year. It's super exciting. You got great games. So far, it's been all chalk except for the Creighton Blue Jays, who I was completely wrong about. Shout out Louisville for blowing that. But this is one of the best sporting days of the year. The first 2 days of the March Madness tournament, they're one of the best.
I mean, it's the best tournament in general.
Don't expand it, by the way.
Never expand it. It doesn't need to get the 76 teams like they keep saying.
I don't need no 17 seed or 18 seed. I don't need any of that.
We don't need to see D2 schools get an opportunity.
No.
You know what I mean? Like,
That's
it's already
big.
perfect as it is, you know?
Yes.
And see, here's the thing, right? You're talking about Creighton Blue Jays. I got to throw it out there. Yeah, I had Louisville in the Elite Eight, so that one hurt a lot. Chucky Hepburn, he's a hooper, but Creighton... And shout out the Toledo product, Jemiah Neal, 29 points, 11 rebounds, 8 assists for him today for Creighton.
I will give credit to Pat Kelsey as well. I mean, this Louisville team won 8 games last year. Honestly, them and Michigan, kind of the same thing. What a turnaround by both their programs. They're both now in the tournament. Well, one of them's still in, one of them's out. But great year from Louisville. And those fans showed up in Lexington. It was loud for that game. Creighton just took it to them early, and yeah, they didn't. I mean, they just kept hitting 3 after 3, and they couldn't miss. In that first half, they couldn't miss at all.
No, they literally couldn't.
It was
I think they reached
nuts.
the point where it felt like they hit like 5 or 6 straight 3-pointers. They were just so hot in that first half, and Louisville, they just couldn't catch up. They tried, but they just couldn't catch up with it. You know, I want to talk about this, though, as well, for that game in particular. Those were two teams that shouldn't have been an 8-9 seed.
No.
Both teams were both 6 seeds, probably.
Yes.
Realistically. And I think the issue I have sometimes with how the tournament is that, you know, you have teams like Texas A&M, who is a 4 seed, but they also have like 11 or 12 losses already. And I think how SEC basketball has been this year, it's been put on this pedestal, kind of like the Big Ten has in the past, or sometimes the Big 12 has, or even the ACC, which ACC historically is your best basketball conference. But the issue I have with it is some of these teams like Louisville or Creighton, both really good top 25 programs.
Louisville should have been like a 6 seed.
And they have to face off against each other in the first round. Another game literally currently going on. You have BYU and VCU. Yeah, VCU's in the Atlantic 10. They had 5 losses this year. Mm-hmm. And BYU was one of the hotter teams in the country. A 6-11 matchup. You know, 2 really good programs. Yes, it is good to see good matchups in the first round. Like, you want to see that. Yeah.
It was a good game for about 5 minutes, and then Creighton took it to them.
Yes.
But, I mean, honestly, the start of the tournament between Alabama State and who the team they played? I can't remember.
Alabama State and St. Francis
PA. Yeah, that was a fantastic game. But in terms of Louisville, no. I mean, I can't remember the last time an ACC team with 7 losses has been this low of a seed. Like, if you tell me, like, a MAC team lost 4 games and they were an 8 seed, I believe that. But a Power 4 school, well, technically Power 5 because of the Big East and men's basketball, but it surprised me, to be honest with you. I thought Louisville, who made the ACC tournament championship, and it was a close game with Duke. They were leading for a little while against the Blue Devils. I was surprised. I thought they'd be a 6, maybe a 5. But there's a lot of talk about the seeding because, in my opinion, I don't like Michigan. Michigan shouldn't be a 5 seed. Yeah, they didn't play well to end the regular season, but they won the Big Ten tournament.
They went on a run.
They should at least be a 4. I mean, you got teams ahead of them. You got Purdue ahead of them, who Purdue wasn't playing that great to end the season. You had Wisconsin ahead of them, who they beat Wisconsin twice, once at the Kohl Center and in the Big Ten tournament championship as well. Same with Maryland. Maryland is a 4 seed. I'm glad Michigan State's a 2 seed for a reason. They won the Big Ten regular season, but I don't think it was fair that the seeding was so off this year. There's a lot of underseeded teams and there's a lot of overseeded teams.
They usually play themselves out too.
Yeah, and that's the thing about this tournament. The best teams are going to show up, and while you don't need to be the best team, you got to be playing the best basketball. At this time, and I think it's going to be a really fun tournament. It always is. Talking about Louisville and Creighton, I mean, Ryan Kalkbrenner was an outstanding difference for this Creighton Blue Jays team, and Stephen Ashworth. I mean, he had 22 points. You saw Jai McNeil, 29 points. Creighton couldn't miss for the longest time. They kept hitting 3. And Louisville, Chucky Hepburn had a good game. Terrence Edwards had a good game. But after that, it was a whole lot of Louisville's bench didn't really play that well, and Creighton just couldn't. Louisville got down too much too early, and this tournament you can come back from it if the other team misses some shots, and Creighton didn't. So I think that's the biggest takeaway from that game. But overall, it's been really good so far. I think that this Clemson-McNeese State in a game is going to be interesting to see how that ends with McNeese out to an 18-point lead at halftime.
Fun fact about halftime leads: a team who has been up by 15 or more at halftime in the first round of the tournament has not lost since 1990. So, Clemson, size-wise, they should be dominating this game, but they have been so sloppy. In McNeese State, they've just capitalized on it. And Will Wade, it's the aura. It's the aura around McNeese.
Yeah, and I'm so upset that he's going to NC State. Yeah, Ohio State's going to be keeping Jake Diebler, and I don't want to talk about it. They're keeping Chris Holtman light. I can go on about that, but I don't want to go on a ramble about it. But Clemson's played terrible. I mean, they have hit 1 3 in the first half, and they've gotten 13 points in the entire. McNeese didn't even have. They had a good half. They didn't have a great half, but they're up by 18 because Clemson's offense resembled a trash can. They couldn't score anything, and I think that the biggest takeaway is, you're going to have a 12 seed win, and we can talk about Colorado State and Memphis. I think that Colorado State team can win that game. UC San Diego's been the popular pick against Michigan. In my opinion, I think Michigan wins that game just because of their size alone, but I thought Clemson would win by their size alone, and McNeese is taking it to them.
Yeah, my beloved UC San Diego Tritons.
Great mascot, by the way.
An elite
King
mascot.
Triton, yeah.
I hate that matchup, though, against Michigan. I think a lot of these sneaky dark horse teams with their matchups have been very bad. One that I really hate, and it's currently going on, is BYU and VCU.
That's going to be a fantastic. It is it's 22-22. Yes. It's going to be a fantastic game.
Whoever wins that game, I think, legitimately will
beat Wisconsin
and possibly move on past the Sweet 16 even. Both teams are very elite. I just don't understand how the seeding really works sometimes, because I feel like a team like North Carolina, right? I don't know how you make it compared to the other teams that were in the bubble.
1-12 in quad 1 wins, compared to West Virginia, who I know had more losses and less wins, but they had, I think, 6 quad 1 wins. They went on the road, beat Kansas, they beat Iowa State. It's ridiculous, but North Carolina got in because of their name. That's the only takeaway I can take from it. R.J. Davis is a great player, and North Carolina is going to go on a run. I fully believe that they're going to beat Ole Miss because they're playing hot at the right time. But the problem is they didn't play hot when they needed to in the regular season. It seemed like every single game was a must-win for them, and they lost every single time. They went 0-3 against Duke this year, and I can't remember a big game that they won.
Simply because the name alone, they got in. You are very right about that. But now that they got in, now they're going to show everybody why they, quote-unquote, deserve to be there.
I have them making the Sweet 16. I think Iowa State's banged up right now. They don't have one of their best players. I think that they're playing the hottest right now. They'll probably beat Iowa State. And that if they end up playing, Michigan State in the Sweet 16, watch out. Michigan State is a streaky team, but they are in my opinion, they are the deepest team in the tournament. They don't have a star per se. Jace Richardson is played fantastic, but like he averaged 13 points. Everybody else 9, 9, 8, 8, 7. But they're so balanced. You don't need a star, and Michigan State proved that. They were unranked to start this season, and Tom Izzo. Can this be the team that finally gets it done? He hasn't won a national title since 2000. And the Spartans have always had good teams. They made the tournament 27 straight times. It's going to be close though. I think that the South with Auburn and Michigan and Texas A&M and Iowa State, North Carolina, it's going to be that's a tough region. That's a really tough region. But Michigan State, they've proven that they can win some big games because that's all they did the last 2 months, it seemed like.
Yeah, and as a 1 seed, I don't really feel like Auburn got that much of a break with this region, like you said. If there's any 1 seed to get knocked off early, I think it's Auburn, simply because of the region.
Yep.
Because of the teams that are in there, because of the sneaky Cinderella teams as well. I think there's
they were in
a
a
lot
fight
there.
with Alabama State. Auburn's up by 18 now. They'll close it out, but Alabama State put up a fight in the first half. And
could have had a lead, but then they let it slip away.
And Auburn is kind of, I think they're 2-3 or 3-3. They've had like 3 or 4 losses in the month of March so far.
Yeah.
They ended the season on a losing streak, and then they lost in the semis of the SEC tournament to Tennessee. They're the most vulnerable 1 seed to me, and they're the number 1 overall seed.
Yeah,
which I don't agree with. I think Florida should be the number 1 overall seed.
I think it's just because of how good Auburn was in that regular season where they only ended with 3 losses, I think they were just that good. They were the most balanced team throughout the regular season, so they got the upper hand there. Florida is the most fun to watch, I think.
Oh, yeah, they are.
They are the most electrifying, and I think that's why they've been really a hot pick for people to win.
Mm-hmm.
The issue I have sometimes is when you get into March Madness and you have all these teams that everyone's picking to win, it like a team like Florida in particular.
Yep.
They give me that first round or second round exit, not first round exit, but like a Sweet 16 or a round of 32 exit out of nowhere, and then everyone's bracket's really busted. So I think when it's all said and done this year, I expect 2 or 3 1 seeds to be in the Final Four this year. I think the 1 seeds are.
I think
dominant.
the ones are that good.
Yeah.
I think the one that I wouldn't put on there is Auburn. I could see Auburn making it, but I like Michigan State, to be honest with you. I like Texas A&M in a way. Michigan, I think, can do something if they can get by this San Diego team, UC San Diego team. I think they can make a run. But you know what? You want to know a fun little fact? You know when the last time all 1 seeds made the Final Four?
It's been a long time.
2008. You want to know where it was held?
2008. That was in Detroit.
Nope.
No, wait.
San Antonio.
Oh, San Antonio.
Want to know where the
right.
Final Four is this year?
San Antonio. That's
so
right.
Who knows? There's a lot of people saying that these 1 seeds are all going to make it, and obviously
was that the Kansas Memphis?
It was Kansas, Memphis. Was it
UCLA,
and let me look.
I can't remember, but I know Kansas, Memphis. I think UCLA was a part of that because that was Derrick Rose Memphis days, if I can recall. Mario Chalmers hitting the buzzer beater against
Memphis, Kansas, North Carolina, UCLA.
Yeah.
Yep, and San Antonio, all 1 seeds. That was the last time. So, I think that you could easily have 1 seeds, but I don't see it. My favorite 1 seed is probably Florida, but it's not my national champion. I know it's really weird to say, but I have a team that I think is they just find ways to win.
Yeah.
Who's your sleeper team that you think can go on a run?
There's a few.
And also, before that, what do you make of UConn and Gonzaga? They're both 8 seeds.
Well, I'll tell you this. I think the one I'm more confident in making a run between those two is Gonzaga.
Same.
They've been playing really good basketball as of late. They've
Yeah.
gotten hot at the right time. And I just like that matchup. I think Houston, Gonzaga.
Gonzaga's already up 8-0.
They are, yeah.
Against Georgia.
There's just something about Gonzaga in the tournament. They seem to always play their best
Playing
ball.
Houston, though, if they win. That will be a fun round of 32 games.
In Houston as well, they give up. I think they're the only team in the tournament, or one of the only teams in the tournament, that defensively give up less than 60 points a game. Houston is so good defensively.
Them and Tennessee are the best defensive teams in this tournament.
And
Houston's better, but Tennessee and Rick Barnes is up there as well. But
they happen to be in the same.
They're in the same region. That Elite Eight matchup, 50-48 final.
So here's the question: does Tennessee even get there? Because they're a team that loves to choke.
Man,
they're really good.
There's an 11 seed I want to cheer for because of a former friend. I want to cheer for Xavier, and I want to cheer for Dante. Shout out
Maddox.
the Musketeers, by the way, for coming back against Texas. That was a heck of a game last night.
Yes.
Down 13 at one point, and they made a really good run. And Xavier with Zach Fremantle. They look pretty good, and they have a winnable game against Illinois. Illinois hasn't been right this year. And if they win that, Kentucky is up and down this year.
I think Xavier, yeah, you're right. I think there's a couple 11 seeds that can make a run. This BYU VCU game, two of my dark horses in this tournament.
You can make a case that all 11 seeds could win. To be honest, I mean that's not
specifically
like a hot
the bubble
take,
ones,
but
the ones that get in the last four. I think
most of the time, at least one bubble team wins.
Yes,
and it could be both North Carolina and Xavier. To be honest with you, but.
I agree with you.
So who's your double-digit seed that you think can make a run?
My double-digit seed, I think that could make a run. I mean, VCU, if they do win this game against BYU, although I have BYU personally in my Elite Eight. But I agree. I think whoever wins this game can go on a run. I think whoever wins it beats Wisconsin. And then they would match up, I think, with, if I can remember the bracket correctly, I think they would match up against, let me see real quick here. They'd match up against a team like Vandy or Bama or St. Mary's in the Sweet 16, and I would like them possibly over Bama, hypothetically. Another 10 seed right here, Vanderbilt. I think Vanderbilt's very slept on. I think out of all the SEC and all the hype around the conference this year, I almost feel like the last remaining SEC team we're going to see is going to be one of them sneaky ones like a Vandy or like a Mississippi State upsetting Duke out of nowhere. I think that's the beauty of March, is that you never really know, even when you think you do.
Yep. That's why brackets get busted within half the first day.
Here's a question for you, Spencer, and for the people at home. We'll give you like 30 seconds to think. What are the odds of a perfect bracket? Do you know the exact number?
Isn't it like 1 in 9.2 quintillion? I think I saw something on social media about that. I think it's something like, yeah. I saw something that's like picking out a grain of rice, like a specific grain of rice, like out of a bag or something like that, or picking out one person on the entire planet of Earth, and then if you get that correctly, you got to pick out a piece of hair, like one correct piece of hair. It's insane. Or like getting struck by lightning 5 times in a row.
You're correct. It is actually 1 in 9.2 quintillion.
Yeah, I saw that.
You can literally do anything in your life before you pick a perfect bracket.
You ain't gonna pick a perfect bracket. No.
It's never gonna happen.
I don't think it will. I think I got the first 10 right. 10 or 11 right, and then I lost. But the best run I ever went, I remember one year, it was the year Auburn played North Carolina in the Sweet 16, and they won. Auburn, I think, went to the Final Four that year. I think it was 2019.
That would have been the Virginia comeback year,
yeah.
Right? That was
the year I got the round of 32 in the Sweet 16 all correct, the winners. I didn't get the team. I had a few wrong. I had some wrong in the round of 64, but I remember I picked the winners. Right, and that's the best run I probably will ever go on.
I had 3 of the Final Four teams that year. I had Michigan State and Texas Tech.
Yep.
And I had Virginia that year, but I sadly had Michigan State winning the Final Four game against Texas Tech and then beating Virginia in the title. Sadly. It's okay, though. This year, is it the year for Sparty?
Auburn should have beaten Virginia, by the way.
They should have.
That Final Four.
Yes, the Kyle Guy
they choked
free throws.
Yeah, they choked that away. My 10 seed that I think is going to make a run is New Mexico. I love this Lobos team. Donovan Dent is a baller. They got 4 guys averaging double-digit points. I really like their matchup. They're going against Marquette. And then I think that they could honestly beat Michigan State. I have Michigan State going to the Final Four, but I can see a world where New Mexico goes on a run because if they get hot, this team can't be stopped. I love Donovan Dent, and I love this offense that New Mexico has.
Yeah, they are really good. I mean, if McNeese State keeps playing like they are right now against Clemson. Score is currently 40 to 18.
Oh my gosh.
It's not pretty right now.
13-0 Gonzaga, by the way.
It's now 13-2.
Oh, hey, how about
But
that? The Bulldogs.
McNeese
Bulldogs are gonna win, I guess.
and Will Wade, who's the future NC State Wolfpack coach. Shout out Jim Valvano, rest in peace. NC State. Shout out DJ Burns, Cam Fonstock's favorite player.
Go off from the bag. Hurry up.
You know, I think
He's accepted.
McNeese State. You know what? Screw it. Bold take here. First 12 seed to ever make the Final Four. You heard it here first.
They're beating Houston?
That's not in my bracket, but it's not in my bracket. But if they keep playing like this.
I cannot believe. Let's go to the opposite. I cannot believe how bad Clemson is playing. This Clemson team's offense with Chase Hunter and that, those guards that they have, it's unbelievable. 18 points through 25 minutes of game time.
They were one of the only ACC teams all year that could realistically compete with Duke. They beat Duke.
You want to know what they're shooting field goal percentage-wise? 22%. They are 6% from 3. They have 11 turnovers.
It is ugly for the Tigers. They should stick the football in Clemson, South Carolina, is what I'm hearing.
Will Wade's a Clemson fan, by the way. I heard something about that to where they don't practice when Clemson football plays.
Really?
So, he's a big Clemson fan. He's getting his get back.
That's what it is.
For sure. And when he goes to NC State next year,
he'll do it.
Watch out,
two times a
man,
year.
because the whole LSU thing that he had, it wasn't right. But he can recruit and he can coach.
Yes.
McNeese was nothing before him, and they've gone to 2 straight tournaments as a 12 seed. They got annihilated by Gonzaga last year, and this year they're annihilating Clemson. So watch out for the Cowboys against Purdue. That'll be a fun matchup, although Purdue's size with Kaufman Rain.
Did just say talking about Clemson size.
But
in the
I did
process.
just talk about Clemson. So at the end of the day, nobody knows anything. We don't know nothing, and Bryant's going to beat Michigan State. Because why the heck not?
Since you want to talk about Bryant beating Michigan State, it's a good time to get some B&B water in here.
Yeah, so
just to cleanse the palate. You guys should subscribe, should like, should hit the push notification bell to stay up to date on all new videos. We're just going to continuously bring more content your guys' way, so we appreciate the comments also. Episode 130, Enter the Loganverse. Got a lot of interaction on that episode. We appreciate it.
That was a good episode.
We appreciate that. And shout out, Eric as well, coming on for some baseball talk here.
2 hours of baseball. It was great. So we'll get to our final 4 in a minute, but I want to know your biggest upset prediction.
My biggest upset prediction, I got to throw this out here. I have like 18 brackets. I don't know how all of you guys are at home. A lot of people like to be purists and have one bracket. Trust me, I agree there because that's your real thoughts.
But you can't win all that money if you only have one.
Exactly. Exactly. So if you combine all 18 that you make, hypothetically, you should be close enough to get a perfect bracket if you combine them together. Realistically, though, my biggest upset I thought was going to happen didn't end up happening with High Point Purdue.
Yeah, same here.
I thought High Point was going to
really
win.
let me down.
But now, realistically, I think another team who has been hot recently and have won 2 of the last 3 times in the first round since they've been in. How about Yale over A&M?
Yep.
And
I agree.
I think that's going to happen.
I have them in my main bracket beating Texas A&M. Texas A&M is one of those slow-paced teams where they don't shoot the ball well, but they attack the glass. They're 4th in the nation in offensive rebounds. They'll have issues. I mean, Yale's going to have issues attacking the boards, but Yale can shoot the ball.
Yeah.
And these Ivy League schools, they tend to, it's crazy to think about Princeton won a few years ago, was a 15 seed.
Yep.
And Yale won last year against Auburn. I mean,
Harvard used to be pretty decent, too, back at the Jeremy Lin days as well,
Shout out the Ivy League schools.
Ivy League, I think, deserves more respect than basketball, personally. I think they kind of slept on as a conference, but... historically, they are like the best conference athletically. if we want to go,
go all the way
back. Wow, that was timing.
That was great timing. My out of pocket.
I like it.
My out of pocket upset is one that one of our dear friends is not going to like. The Lipscomb Bison. They're going to beat Iowa State. This Iowa State team's hurt. this Iowa State team is not playing the greatest, and I just got a feeling, man. And I had a feeling about High Point they lost. So I congrats to Iowa State on beating Lipscomb by 25. But I really like this Lipscomb Bison's team. They got a guy averaging 20 points per game and 8 rebounds. Ognjenovic. And Iowa State's hurt. They don't have their second leading points per game guy, and I think that's going to affect them. Lipscomb can shoot the basketball really well. They're one of the best three-point shooting teams in the country, and they rebound very well. Their issue is turnovers. And Iowa State, if they can capitalize on that, they're going to win easily because Lipscomb's going to turn the ball over a lot, but they can also shoot the lights out of the ball. And I just got a feeling about Lipscomb, man. And they're going to let me down. So
here's a sneaky one for you. How about a team that recently, when they had John Calipari as their head coach, they kept on getting upset. Why not continue the trend and have the Troy Trojans upset Kentucky? Look, Troy, they won the Sun Belt Conference, and to be fair to them, they did play a tough non-conference schedule. They played Houston. They played, let me see here. They played Houston. Why is my thing not popping up here? My notes. It's all right. But they played like 4 non-conference Power 5 teams, and they put up some tough fights against them. I know Houston was one of them, but they fought hard. And Kentucky, they don't know how to play defense to save their life. Every time I watch a Kentucky game, I think the other team scores about 80 points.
They're so hot and cold.
That's
another team. I think Kentucky's way overseeded. I don't think Kentucky's a 3 seed. They just, to me, they're so hot and cold. I've seen them lose to Auburn. Get blown out by them. They lose bad games, and then they just don't impress me. And I know with the first-year head coach, it's going to be an adjustment, but it's still Kentucky. You're still going to be able to get recruits. I could definitely see Troy doing it. With last year, Kentucky lost to Oakland. Shout out Jack Golke, one of the best performances you'll ever see by a March Madness Cinderella story.
There we go.
But I could see it.
Yeah, so Troy played Arkansas, Oregon, and Houston in non-conference play. So they played some heavy hitters. Oregon, a 5 seed, Arkansas, a 10, who was ranked at the time when they did play. And Arkansas, I think, is a sneaky 10 seed. I think they could.
Mm-hmm. I have them winning.
Beating Kansas.
That is such an odd. Just think of the coaching staff that's in that little bubble there with Bill Self, John Calipari, and Rick Pitino.
Yeah,
that is nuts. And I hope it's Calipari versus Pitino because that would be a fun round of 32 matchup. Old Kentucky coaches going at it. Now watch, Omaha's going to win the region. Omaha's going to go on and they're going to go to the Sweet 16. Shout out the Mavericks.
One more upset I want to say. And we're going with a 15 seed over a 2 just to throw a little wrench in some people's brackets here. Why not the Wofford Terriers over Tennessee? You're talking about a Volunteers program that has been really in the last decade one of those schools that should have gotten over the hump, and they never do. They never do. And this year feels like the team that should feel destined to do so. And Wofford, remember a few years back how good this program, they were
a high seed, if I can remember.
They were like an 8-9.
Yeah, I can't remember, but I remember they were a higher seed a few years ago, and they used to be really good, and, well, they're back again. So
Tennessee is 18.5-point favorites in this game. If I'm a bettor out there, I'm taking Wofford in the points, personally. I think this game, it's at 6:50 tonight. I think this game's going to be much closer. And I think this is the 15 seed to watch 100%. As when y'all watch this, it'll already be too late to know. But I think this is the one to watch 100%.
See, the problem with 2-15s, it's either going to be close or it's going to be a dismantling.
Yes.
So
there's no in between.
There's no in between. It's not going to be like up by 8, but I can't say I can't see it because we've seen 16s beat 1s, we've seen 15s beat 2s. It seems like in the past 5 years, you have had a 16, a 15, a 14, a 13 win. I think every single lower seed has won a game in the tournament. So I could see it. I could see any of these teams losing. By the way, Gonzaga's up 27-3. Not even 10 minutes into the game. So
Georgia thought this was football and started kicking field goals.
Yeah, Gonzaga missed the extra point. You hate to see it. But I could definitely see that. The best thing about March is it's so unpredictable. And the thing is, you're going to have Cinderella stories. Maybe it's this McNeese team. Maybe it's Yale. Maybe it's, hell, maybe it's Robert Morris. Maybe they're going to go and beat this, this flawed Alabama team who can score but plays terrible
and see,
defense.
Georgia was supposed to be one of these teams on the bubble as well.
Yeah.
And they ended up being a 9 seed.
Yeah, no, I don't agree
20
with that.
and 12. And we're talking about Louisville and Creighton.
That's another team. Gonzaga is an 8. That's underseeded in my opinion.
It's because of their conference and who they play.
But they won.
But they didn't play good in non-conference.
Won the conference. I get that, but they still won their conference. They should at least be like a 6.
I think roughly this is fair.
They went 25-8. That's not. I mean, that's still good. But
it's different because for them of how quote unquote lackluster their conference is compared to the rest. And then in their non-conference schedule, they still didn't play all that great.
And I got to be honest, just looking at the bracket, my favorite matchups might honestly end up being the 1-8s of the 1-9s.
I agree.
You get Auburn versus Creighton. The way Creighton played today, they could beat Auburn. I think Auburn's very beatable. You could have Florida versus UConn. You're going to have Gonzaga versus Houston unless Gonzaga chokes.
You got Duke. You could have Duke, Mississippi State, Baylor, and I think Mississippi State's one of those sneaky SEC teams.
That's the 8-9 I cannot get a handle on. I couldn't. I don't know who wins that game. Like I felt good about Louisville and they lost. I feel good about UConn. I felt good about Gonzaga. Mississippi State and Baylor just is like,
yeah.
I don't know. Because Baylor isn't that good, and Mississippi State's a middle-of-the-pack SEC team.
Baylor has been there, and Scott Drew, so I think...
What a fall from grace from Baylor, by the way.
Really. I trust Baylor simply because they've been there, and their coaching staff is still one of the better ones in the country.
I also want to say this before we get to our Final Four picks. Being MAC guys, I could see a more than 50% chance of Akron beating Arizona.
Yeah. Arizona
is such a streaky team. Now, if they come out and they play really well, there's no way for Akron. But if Arizona plays, up and down like they get against Iowa State, Akron can shoot the 3. We saw it. Now they didn't play great in the They're
MAC
top
tournament 5
game.
in the nation in shooting the 3.
Miami should have won that game. The Redhawks blew that game.
Yes.
It came down to Akron. Akron had a great comeback, and shout out to the Zips. I hope it happens. I want the MAC to make a run. The MAC hasn't had a team win since, I think, OU when Preston, was it Preston?
Yeah, Jason Preston.
Was there, and they beat Virginia.
Yep.
Man, Virginia loves losing the first round.
They do love losing in the first round. You also got to remember Buffalo.
National championship, lost in the first round, lost in the first 4, lost in the first round. And then Buffalo was a 6 seed a while ago. Like I think in 2019 they were a 6 seed.
They upset Arizona as well, I think the year prior. You got to remember, this is Nate Oates' Buffalo.
This is when Nate Oates...
he's the head coach of Alabama.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the Mac's had it, and even in the past, you've had Antonio Gates in Kent State. Yes, the tight end.
The Elite Eight.
The tight end. Hall of Famer, first ballot Hall of Famer this year, Antonio Gates, as one of the best players of that Kent State basketball team that went to the Elite Eight.
It's crazy how you never hear Toledo on any of these things.
I know, right?
I wonder why that is.
No, because
I heard they won the MAC 4 straight years.
They did win the MAC 4 straight years. That's correct. We can clown Toledo another day.
That's what it's fun though.
It is very fun.
Let's get to our Final Four. I want to get now. Obviously, we have a bunch of brackets, but you're obviously your main one. Who is your Final Four in your main bracket?
My Final Four. I'll go start with the South region up top left.
And you know what? You can throw the Elite Eight in there.
Well, I'm going to throw the Elite Eight because my Elite Eight is now already messed up in the South.
Yep.
So I'm going to have the South. You know what? It's going to be a battle of Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
Michigan State. I think
that would be awesome.
I think Creighton upsets Auburn. I think Michigan gets to the Sweet 16. I do think Yale beats A&M. Michigan State happens. Michigan State beats North Carolina in the Sweet 16. Michigan beats Creighton. And Michigan State, the Sparties, they're going back to the Final Four.
It's hard to beat a team 3 times in a season.
They're going back. to the Final Four since
Could you
Cassius
imagine if
Winston and
Michigan
upsetting
made
Zion.
the Final Four in Dusty May's first year after winning 8 games?
Anything can happen, bro.
Anything can happen.
Anything can happen. I'm going to move down to the West. Talking Florida Gators and St. John's, 2 teams that I wish were in the same bracket. Because if these 2 teams were in completely different regions, this might be my national championship.
Mm-hmm.
I have both teams. It's going to be the 1 versus 2. I think Texas Tech has a legit chance. I think Maryland could be sneaky if they get past Grand Canyon and whoever in the Memphis-Colorado State game. Derek Queen, baller. I think Maryland's a sneaky one out of that region. And UConn could bite Florida. I don't know about Oklahoma, but I think UConn simply because
That'll be a game. That'll be a good game.
But Florida St. John's is the Elite 8. And I hate to do it to Rick Pitino, but I think Florida right now is just playing really good basketball.
Clayton
Really
Jr.
good. Walter Clayton Jr.
an
is
unbelievable player.
He's a beast.
Who was coached by Rick Pitino at Iona.
Yes, he was. So on one half, I have Michigan State versus Florida in the Final Four,
What
which
a
I think
game.
will be
What a game.
electrifying. Out of the East, my Elite 8 matchup is the 1 seed Duke Blue Devils and Cooper Flag, Concanupple versus the 6-seeded BYU Cougars. Currently up 11 over VCU at halftime as we speak right now,
pulling
too.
away a little bit. We'll see what happens in the second half.
They're going to beat Wisconsin, and they're going to beat Alabama to get to the Elite 8 and face off against Cooper Flag. But BYU doesn't have Cooper Flag. The Duke Blue Devils are going back to the Final Four. And in the Midwest region, you've got Houston going all the way through. They're going to beat McNeese State in the Sweet 16. McNeese State is going to beat Purdue in the 12 seeds getting to the Sweet 16.
What was before the Clemson McNeese State game?
I had McNeese State still because I had McNeese.
Really?
I had McNeese.
I thought
High
you said
Point.
you had Clemson in the Elite 8.
In one region.
Oh, okay.
In my main bracket, see, here's what. With me, you have different ones, but in my main bracket,
Yeah.
I had McNeese and High Point. Moving
Okay.
on.
Yeah.
So McNeese State
Panthers.
to the Sweet 16. I have Xavier beating Illinois, and I also have them beating Kentucky. To go to the
Dante's
Sweet
going to the
16.
Sweet 16.
Whoever won that Xavier-Texas game, I thought was going to be a Sweet 16 team.
So you think both play-in teams are going to go to the Sweet 16?
I do.
Yeah.
I 100% do. They're hot.
They are.
And you get that
Especially,
extra game.
I can't lie. North Carolina dismantled San Diego
Yeah.
State. Like, it was actually unfair. That was like a G League game against an NBA team.
Yes. And then, Xavier, Tennessee. I think Tennessee gets the upper hand there. So we're going to have 1 versus 2 in Houston and Tennessee. And I think this year, Houston gets over the hump. They get back to the Final Four, first time since 2020 during the COVID year. Really 2021. And we're going to have 3 1 seeds in the Final Four and a 2 seed. Michigan State, Florida, Duke, Houston, Final Four. Michigan State, Florida, it's a tough one to pick because Florida's really hot. But they've been a real trendy pick right now, and I'm always scared of trendy picks.
That's why I'm scared of that UC San Diego Michigan game.
So I'm going with my Spartans to get to the national championship for the first time since 2000
That's nuts to think
with
about.
Izzo. And then Duke, Houston. Like I said, Houston is so good. They're the best defensive team in the country. But they do not have Cooper Flag. Cooper Flag is going to play in the national championship in San Antonio. It'll be Duke, Michigan State national championship. And to avenge that regional final from a couple years ago with Zion Williamson and R.J. Barrett, Duke will be your national champions. The Duke Blue Devils are going to finally get back over that hump. They have not won a national championship since the Jahlil Okafor days. It feels like every 3 years, everyone's like, it's Duke, it's Duke, it's Duke. This year, it is Duke. The Blue Devils.
All right, so I will start out in the South region. I have in my Sweet 16, I have Auburn versus Michigan and Michigan State versus North Carolina. I have Auburn and Michigan State winning those games. So I have 1 and 2 in the South region. I think it's the Spartans' time to finally make it again. Since 2019, they haven't been there. They actually have had a few bad years, but they've still made the tournament. I think that Tom Izzo and this team is one of the most balanced teams in the country, like I said, and I think they get over the Auburn hump. I think they get over the hump of the Elite Eight, and they finally make it back to the Final Four. Would have been cool for them to play Michigan. I just think Michigan doesn't have the firepower that Auburn has. But Michigan State's going to make it. In the West region, my Sweet 16, Maryland versus Florida. I have Florida winning that game. And then I have St. John's versus Texas Tech. I told everybody I was going to choose this team to win the national title, and I've gone back on it. And I don't know why. I told people I had my mind set on St. John's winning the national title and Rick Pitino. Because why not? You have a team who's been terrible for 25 years. They win a natty with Rick Pitino. I have Texas Tech beating him in the Sweet 16.
It can happen.
And this Texas Tech team, JT Toppin is an unbelievable player. They got 4 guys averaging double digits. They have 3 guys averaging 14 or more with Darian Williams and Chance McMillan. This Texas Tech team can score from anywhere. I have them beating St. John's, and I have Texas Tech beating Florida in the Elite Eight to get the rematch of the Final Four in 2019 of Michigan State versus Texas Tech.
Okay,
in San Antonio. In the East,
onions.
Yup. What a Final Four that was. Both, I was cheering for Michigan State, but they choked.
Don't rub it in.
In the East, in the Sweet 16, I got Duke versus Oregon. I like this Ducks team. I don't like them against Duke. Give me Duke to win that. In the Sweet 16, on the other side, Alabama versus BYU. BYU's playing as hot as any team in the country right now. The Mormons are playing really well. I got them beating Alabama. I think that Alabama's we have the same Elite Eight in that matchup. So I have Duke versus BYU. My original bracket, I had BYU winning. I don't have BYU winning this time. I have Duke beating BYU. They have Cooper Flagg, and Cooper Flagg will be playing in his future home in San Antonio because I'm going to want to just be done with everything because San Antonio gets everything. And of the Midwest, I'm just going to go with the original bracket that I had because it's funny. I have Clemson over Houston in the Sweet 16. Let's check on the Clemson Tigers real quick.
Fun fact, let me tell you, it's 51-29. McNeese is up with 7:50 to go. McNeese, 27 bench points to 29 total points.
You know
for
what?
Clemson.
At this point, I have a few brackets with McNeese winning. I hope they do. I want chaos, man. And good for Will Wade. He's going to do great things at NC State. Too bad we have Chris
Amir
Holtman
Khan.
light there in Columbus.
Amir Khan, the legend, lives on.
Yeah, Clemson. So I had Clemson win the Sweet 16. This was before they decided to play like a bunch of bums and play like they don't care about the sport of basketball anymore.
They never have in Clemson.
But they made the Elite Eight last year.
Woohoo! They lost to Bama, which should have been a football game, but
that's crazy. That was a basketball game, especially with how good Bama and Clemson been in football. Anyways, to the Sweet 16, the other side, Tennessee and Xavier. I have Tennessee winning that game. Xavier's a really cool story. I think they're going to make the Sweet 16. Tennessee's defense. Rick Barnes has got to get it done at some point. Like at some point, it was like what we talked about with Virginia. Virginia was going to get it done at some point. It took them losing to UMBC to then fuel them for next year, but Tennessee's going to get it done at some point. I think they're going to lock in a matchup with Clemson. That's a lie. They're not going to match up. They're not going to match up with Clemson. Clemson's 8 minutes away from being done, but I have Tennessee winning anyway. So I have Tennessee winning the Midwest. So my Final Four is Michigan State versus Texas Tech and Duke versus Tennessee. In the Final Four in San Antonio, Michigan State avenges their loss from 2019. They beat Texas Tech. We're going to have the same
national championship, aren't we?
Yes, we are. And I have Duke beating Tennessee because Duke has Cooper Flagg. And guess what? We have the same winner because the Duke Blue Devils and shout out Cam are going to win the national championship.
Why do we do this to ourselves?
Because they have Cooper Flag. And you know what? We're going to shout out the Mount St. Mary's Mountaineers. They're going to beat Duke in the round of 64 because we both just picked Duke to win the national championship. So shout out the Mountaineers.
We do this every time. We don't even look. We do it.
I promise we didn't see each other's brackets. We didn't see any of this.
Preseason football, we had Oregon winning the national championship. And now for March Madness, we have Duke versus Michigan State. And Duke winning.
We had
the
a team
national
from
championship.
well, we had Oregon winning, but then a team from that conference won the national title. So
right.
The ACC school that is left is North Carolina. They're gonna win the national title after everybody dogging them of going 1-12.
This would be the team for North Carolina to do it too.
Yeah.
They make no sense. See, here's the thing about North Carolina. They're that school when they're in, they go far.
Yep.
When
they were an 8 seed a few years ago, and they went all the way to the national title game.
So if they're in, just know they're like guaranteed an Elite 8 spot.
Yep.
But then they just won't be in. They won't be in if they don't go far at all.
That's crazy.
So yeah, Duke, Michigan State national championship. You heard it here first. In reality, we already know it's going to be Bryant versus Wofford, 2 15 seeds.
Let's go.
So
you know what? We can't get all 16s left, but let's get some 15s in the Final Four. I would love it.
Please, St. Peter's. We wish you did it.
Let's have Mount St. Mary's versus Bryant in the national title game. The Bulldogs versus the Mountaineers. Not Gonzaga in West Virginia.
A team who should have made it, who now has Darian DeVries as their head coach.
That's another.
Who
that's
left
another
for
thing.
Indiana.
He left
My
after
bad.
1 year, man. Didn't even decide to build anything there. Said, Indiana.
I heard a rumor that.
Why is Indiana a blue blood, by the way?
Well, they were.
They were, but they're still. Everybody acts like they are. They're not. They haven't done anything in like 2 decades. Actually, technically, like
Yogi
4.
Ferrell, okay. Plumlee, okay.
Really?
Not Plumlee. Cody Zeller.
Yeah.
Two tall white dudes that look the
They
same.
didn't do much in the NCAA tournament.
No, they didn't.
Wisconsin is a better history of them because they've actually made the national title game, and it was a decade ago.
As of recently, yeah.
Indiana should not be a blue blood, but that's another conversation. And the DeVries hire, I actually really like it.
I like the hire.
I love the hire for Darian DeVries. He's bringing his son Tucker.
Of course he is.
Here's
coach
the thing.
his
Son.
I heard a rumor out there that this was actually already agreed upon like a month ago.
Probably.
That he was going to leave West Virginia and go to Indiana with his son. If you really think about it, his son also had shoulder surgery.
Yep.
And like
his son's very good.
Hold on, but 20 days later in a game, he's chilling on the bench going like this, like cheering. Does that look like a guy who had who has a really bad shoulder injury?
My arm.
Was he sat out?
Sorry, it's sore. No, it's sore.
Or was he sat out by his dad because he already knew what was going to happen?
You think he sabotaged Morgantown?
I think he did, 100%. West Virginia, let's be honest, they should have made the tournament.
Yep.
Over North Carolina.
They should have been the 11th seed in there instead of North Carolina.
Yes.
They should have been playing San Diego State. But that's what happens when you have a big name brand and you're North Carolina. If you're a blue blood, you get the benefit of the doubt.
West Virginia was playing really good basketball for the last 15 years as well.
They actually
with Bob
had
Huggins.
like good wins too.
So,
like they weren't playing. They didn't lose every must-win game. They beat Iowa State. They beat Kansas at Allen Fieldhouse. Like they have big wins.
Not to make you feel happy, but Clemson has made it a 17-point game. Make it 15 and about to go to the free throw line.
Nah, 6.5.
The run is on. The run is on right now.
If McNeese chokes this game, Will Wade should just say, you know what, NC State, I'm going to hold off for another year. We're going to go back to NC State. The next year I'm going to go to Ohio State. Or we'll actually win in games.
It's not happening.
But no.
It's not happening. But yeah, Clemson has now made it a game, 6:21 to go. And it's 51-36.
So let's talk about some individual games in the round of 64 because I think there's a few ones that I want to talk about. The first one's the Michigan-UC San Diego game. Because this is a game that could go either way. Everybody's picking UC San Diego. And doesn't it feel like if Michigan wins, that's the upset? Even though Michigan's the higher seed, doesn't it feel like if UC San Diego loses, like a 5 seed
Yeah.
upsets a 12.
I'm pretty certain.
To be honest, it just seems like that's because like last year, you had James Madison in Wisconsin. JMU won that game against Wisconsin. Everybody was in on the Dukes. Fun fact: head coach of that team is now in Vanderbilt. First year made in the NCAA tournament, so congrats to him. But anyway, that seems like the same for this year. This is the trendy 12 pick. McNeese was another trendy one last year, but like the one everybody when Selection Sunday came out and you saw the board, Michigan a 5 seed, and then this 30-win team from San Diego in their first tournament, the Tritons. I don't know, man.
Hey, who was in on UC San Diego before everybody else?
Hey, man.
Just got to throw that out there. Although I don't think they win because everyone is picking them.
Tite Jones is an unbelievable player.
Yes.
UC San Diego, I love teams that come out of nowhere because I hope they go on runs. Like, I hope UC San Diego wins, not just because they're a 12 seed. It'd be funny to see Michigan lose in the first round. But at the same time, it's like we talked about it with Clemson. Clemson has a size advantage over McNeese. Michigan has a size advantage and then some with Danny Wolf and Vlad Golden over UC San Diego. Michigan has a big problem turning over the ball, and you know who the best team in the country is at converting on turnovers?
UC San Diego.
UC San Diego. So, I can't get a hold on that game. I chose Michigan in my main bracket just because I have a feeling that Vlad Golden and that offense is going to get golden with Trey Donaldson. Michigan has pieces. They're playing hot. They just won the Big Ten tournament. Shout out Dusty May in his year 1 at Michigan. Unbelievable season after winning 8 games last year. And then on the other side, Texas A&M and Yale. We talked about it. Yale could easily beat Texas A&M. And the Ivy League schools, they like to go on runs.
Another 12 seed, and I don't think a lot of people have talked about it all.
Colorado State.
Liberty.
That's true, actually.
No one's talked about Oregon Liberty. Like, this isn't a possibility.
13-point game.
I'm just saying, you know who they did beat in the regular season? They beat McNeese State. Liberty is 28-6.
And Oregon's either going to be hot or cold.
You never know what you're going to get with
You
Oregon.
could see Oregon make the Elite Eight, or you could see Oregon just lose right in the round of 64. Sort of like Clemson. And Clemson's taking the loser route.
No one has talked about this Liberty team either. Yes, the trendy pick has been UC San Diego, and that's why I've backed off.
The thing is, normally it works, though. That's the crazy thing. Normally the trendy pick works. We talked about it. Remember Murray State with John Morant against Marquette, the 5-12? Everybody picked Murray State. Murray State ended up winning. Last year with James Madison, a 31-win James Madison team, beat Wisconsin. This is the same for this year. UC San Diego, everybody's picking the 12, and normally they end up winning, which is the crazy thing. I don't know because Michigan has the size. I keep saying the size advantage thing, but I can't just base it off of Clemson because Clemson, that is that is one of the worst offensive performances ever. Shooting, 20% from the field is unbelievable and something that normally doesn't happen. But for this year, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about the UC San Diego pick anymore. Because everyone's picking. And Michigan's hot, though. Like, exactly. You got to think about it with James Madison. Michigan just went on a run. They annihilated Purdue. They, at the last minute, beat Maryland and on the Trey Donaldson floater. And then they handled Wisconsin. It was an ugly game. Michigan plays an ugly brand of basketball, but they play it well.
Yes.
You know who else plays an ugly brand of basketball? Remember Virginia a few years ago? It was like watching paint dry. They won a national title. Tony Bennett was a boring coach, but he won. And then he lost in the first round. You either won a natty or you lost in the first round, but you got one. Same with Rick Barnes in Tennessee. They play a defensively stout game. They're not great offensively, but they get to the boards. You can win with defense. The problem is it just seems like the teams that are the defensive juggernauts only win every once 10 years.
Yes, that's very true. They come out of nowhere.
They
finally get over the hump.
Yeah.
Is really what happens.
People talk about
St. John's
so
is that this year too. That's how St. John's can win is defense. They're one of the better defensive teams in the country as well.
Texas Tech is so good. The Texas Tech, I just think is going to win that region. I like Florida, man, but and Florida might be my. The problem is Florida's my number one team, but I think Texas Tech's going to beat them. So I don't know how that makes sense, but it's just a gut feeling. But I had a gut feeling about High Point. And They decide to not play well. But...
Follow your gut. It always tells you wrong.
Yep. Yeah, this Clemson.
Except once every 10 times, then your gut's right. And then you realize your gut is always right. That's a quote of the century right there. Know what I'm saying? This McNeese State Clemson game is still
53-39.
Still a game. It is still a game. And BYU, VCU have just tipped off as well. And you know what? We're going to wrap it up right here. We're going to let you guys enjoy the madness that March brings to everybody. Make sure you subscribe. Hit the like bell. Hit the push notification bell. Stay up to date on all new videos. Follow us on Spotify. Watch on Spotify. Listen to us wherever you get your podcasts as well. Short episode today, but let the madness begin. We'll be back with you guys next week. Take care. Peace out.
See ya.